Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, 5 Ways to Market to Gen Z Students. College students are the talk of the town among digital marketers, and by 2020, they'll make up 40% of consumers. In the next 30 minutes, we'll share 5 time-tested strategies to tap into this audience, including who these young consumers are, how to engage with them the way they want, and effective promotional strategies to reach them. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. We'll be sending out post-webinar communications, which include both the slides and the recorded presentation. We hope you find the content useful, but if any questions come up, please feel free to ask them throughout the chat window. We'll be answering them at the end of the session. Before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce our speaker today, Bill Schneider. As Vice President of Product Marketing, Bill helps drive product direction and education of its digital verification platform. Over his 20-year software career, Bill has held key roles with leading software companies in customer analytics, big data, shopper marketing, and mobile engagement. He regularly consults with leading consumer brands, providing best practices on how to build highly personalized communication programs across channels at scale. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Bill.
Thanks, Kelly, and hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As Kelly mentioned, we'll spend the next 30 minutes or so sharing the latest best practices that we've assembled in working with dozens of leading brands on how to build high-performing campaigns with Gen Z college students. I'm going to start out by sharing our latest market data. I'll talk about the potential of Gen Z, the size of the college student market and why they're a great fit to access the Gen Z segment, and their attitudes on promotions and discounts along with the topic of the day, digital privacy. Then I'll share 5 distilled best practices that we've pulled together in working with our top customers that you can take with you into your next campaign, along with the types of results that brands are seeing. Okay, so let's get started. Oops. So in short, Gen Z is taking the world by storm. They are literally the largest demographic ever. Despite the fact that the oldest Gen Zer is just 24 years old, they are already contributing a significant amount to the economy. In fact, they are projected to make up, as Kelly pointed out, 40% of all consumers by next year. And they are intensely independent. Having grown up in a world of digital, they are accustomed to an always-on world that can fulfill their needs. And they are already contributing significantly to the economy. The latest figure shows that they're adding currently $147 billion to the US economy alone. So now is the time to start creating these formative relationships with Gen Z, as they are literally our next generation customer segment. A great opportunity to create a relationship with Gen Z is as they enter college. Discretionary college spending is now at an all-time high, with more than $500 billion dedicated to things like buying back-to-school supplies, buying the latest devices to get ready for school, outfitting the dorm room, and getting together and buying new clothes to update their new look for the new year. Now, we may think, as we are targeting college students, to focus specifically on college students, but clearly parents are also a factor as they factor in heavily into college spending. According to a study by Deloitte in 2018, they found parental back-to-college spending was expected to reach over $25 billion, which is over $1,300 per household. So with that as a backdrop, how do we connect with Gen Z? Well, if there's a word that sums up the attitude of Gen Z, it's access. They have grown up in a world of bits and bytes where they are accustomed to the ubiquity and ease that the internet provides. The phone, as we know, is the experience. Virtually everybody in this segment has a phone, and they do everything on mobile. researching products, learning about them, informing themselves about which product selections they can make, and ultimately purchasing are all first hat to them. But that doesn't mean that it's only on mobile. There was a study that was pulled together by IBM and the National Retail Federation recently that indicated that 2/3 of Gen Z shop in brick and mortar stores in combination with their online time. So to capture the minds and the hearts of Gen Z, we need to be just as digitally nimble and create compelling and seamless experiences across in-store, digital, and mobile. But it's not just about access. Gen Z also wants control, and they want anonymity. Gen Zers, being digital natives and being aware of how the internet works, they value their privacy more than previous generations. In fact, 87% reported that keeping their personal information private was more important to them than popularity measures like getting likes on posts, to give you an idea of how important this actually is. And they're very savvy about how to keep their data under wraps. There's a lot of market data out there that indicates some of the techniques that Gen Zers are using. For example, they're more inclined to cover their webcam on their laptops than other generations. 2/3 report that they've adjusted their privacy settings on social channels and are conscious of where they are sharing personal data. So as marketers that are trying to attract and acquire this segment, getting high quality data to target this generation can be a challenge. In addition, 75% of Gen Zers only allow location sharing for apps that require them to function. And 58% toggle their location sharing according to how and when they want to use it. So while Gen Zers expect hyper-personalized digital experiences, they do take their privacy seriously and will be loyal to those brands that do the same. So speaking of loyalty, there is some recent data that we found that talks about how Gen Z views the brands that they let into their lives. Gen Z they are loyal and express strong affinity for the brands that specifically line up with their values. 2/3 said that once they connect with a brand, they're in it for the long haul, as long as the mission and product quality continues to meet their expectations. If they don't, as we know, they're quick to switch because growing up in a digital environment where things are just a click away, it's very easy to find the next best option. So it's very important for us as we consider in building our campaigns that our campaigns map to their values, they line up with our own brand values, and that we provide consistency across those programs. Okay, so now that we've gone through and took a look at the Gen Z audience and what makes them tick, let's switch gears and talk about some of the best practices that we've seen brands implement to connect with them and build a relationship. The first technique that we're going to recommend is to build a promotion that is exclusively available for students. As I mentioned earlier, college students is a great opportunity to reach the Gen Z audience as they leave the home and start to make some of their own purchases on their own, considerable purchases on their own. So a gated exclusive offer is a great way to get their attention. And if you're not familiar with this technique, gated exclusive offers are promotions that are designed to reach and engage members of a particular group or segment based upon their occupation, their life stage, in this case, students, or their affiliation. So let's take a look at what a gated exclusive offer looks like and break it down. So what makes an exclusive offer truly exclusive is verifying the eligibility of your target segment. So in a survey that we did last year of more than 1,000 consumers around the country, more than half of them said that verifying eligibility increases their trust with the brand. So this is a very important component. Moreover, If they detect that an offer is available to everyone, they lose trust in the brand. So there can also be a negative effect. So here, we're taking a look at the offer page that J.Crew has. And you can see they've got two different offers, one for students and one for teachers. And they're asking for students to verify eligibility on this landing page. And so once a student clicks and expresses interest in the offer, the verification form pops up. And they are filled out, the student is presented with this easy to fill out form that asks them for just a few pieces of basic information that we then check on the back end to verify eligibility. This is done literally in milliseconds among nearly 9,000 authoritative data sources that we consult around the world to verify that the student is currently enrolled. In fact, we just announced that we now support 191 countries around the world. So if you are a brand that is interested in building a campaign that is in multiple countries, that is now a capability and is available in virtually every country. In our research, we found that it was very important to keep the form simple, to ask the minimal amount of information necessary, like first and last name, university attended, and date of birth. That's it. There aren't any usernames or passwords that the student has to remember. That's all that they need, and it's simple and painless for them to do as they verify their eligibility. Gated offers work because of these three different factors, right? First, they're personal. They recognize that something about the person that they strongly identify with, in this case, going to college. That identity is shared, and people tend to share the offer with other people in their tribe. This is very different in other forms of segmentation, where in many cases, people in a segment aren't aware of the other people that they share similar attributes with, and so by definition don't share it with other members in their segment. In this case, students are aware that the offer is just for them and then share it with other students, helping drive down your cost of acquisition in reaching these other students about your offer. And then the third piece is that exclusive. Because it's limited to a specific group and for a specific time, it drives urgency. Typically, we see conversion rates that are 3 times or higher of a typical promotion, which has been reported by several of the customers that we work with. So because of these factors, gated offers perform. So in that same study that I mentioned just a few moments ago with 1,000 consumers, Gen Zers in particular said that a gated exclusive offer would encourage them to shop with a brand for the first time, buy more frequently, buy more often, increase their likelihood of purchase, and purchase sooner, in essence, speed up the buying cycle. So all very powerful factors on how these offers impact the behavior of somebody in Gen Z. Okay, so now let's take a look at our second best practice. And oftentimes when you think about an exclusive offer, you think about the discount. But this is much more than the discount. As we talked about earlier, because you are connecting with the person's identity, in this case, the fact that they are a student, you can tap into all of the emotions and associations that come along with that identity. To help bring this to light, we asked Gen Z how gated exclusive offers make them feel. And this is what they said. They said it makes them feel more excited, it makes them feel rewarded and recognized, and it makes them feel special. And because these offers are exclusive, it elicits powerful emotions for being seen and recognized. So because their identity is such a big component of the offer, you want to make sure that you are speaking directly to them and their tribe, and that is represented in your messaging. So when we look at campaigns, we typically see campaigns do two things particularly well. The first is they speak to the segment, right? In this case, for student messaging, they speak to the sense of freedom, to the sense of possibility, and to challenging the status quo. As a parent that has a Gen Zer, I know all of these attributes are in my household. So I know that they work. And I really appreciate SoundCloud's campaign here. I think they did a really great job in communicating how students feel, how college students feel, and Gen Zers feel, right? Flexing that student status, being proud of your youth and being proud of your college status and recognizing that status within the campaign. The second thing they do is they do share the promotion details, and in some cases that can take a primary position or a secondary position. In this case, I wanted to bring up a campaign that was run by Xfinity, where they made that front and center, as you can see here, right? They have very clear messaging, front and center, here's what you're gonna get, 25% off, and they made that offer big and bold, so it was very clear to students on what the offer meant. Now, I also want to show a different type of campaign. And this is one by Tableau. If you're not familiar, Tableau is a powerful reporting and analytics solution, and they are routinely recognized for their college education program. And they have made a very big commitment to college students and educators around the world by providing them with a free license to their software while a student is attending school. So in addition to the license, they also provide training on how to use the software and career tips to getting your first job in the data field. So there's many benefits around this, and what's unique about this is that it's much more than the promotion itself. They're also putting together services and education materials to really take the program to the next level and demonstrate that they're in the student's corner to help them as they enter the work world. So not only is this the right thing to do for students, it's also great for their business as they create a unique brand relationship with these students as they get ready to influence software purchase decisions in the future. And they have had very good success. In just 18 months, it was reported that they saw 250,000 students sign up around the world, around more than 40 countries worldwide, and the program is still expanding. So that gives you a sense for the power of having a very strong brand connection to this segment. And we've seen these types of programs where it goes much beyond the promotion itself with brands like T-Mobile and Lowe's with the military that are building additional services and components to the promotion to create a stronger brand impression, and the results follow. Okay, so let's move on to the third best practice. So once you have your message in place, it's clearly about getting the message out. And the two top channels that we typically see exclusive offers perform best are one, organic search. So, this is where somebody is familiar with your brand and they are interested in looking to see if you have a student promotion as well. So they'll type in your brand name and your student promotion, and that tends to drive a lot of traffic, particularly as your program has been in flight for a while and gets indexed. And the second is around social. And social works particularly well because, as I mentioned, touched on lightly earlier, students, of course, know other students and will pass along your offer, which helps drive your cost of acquisition down. So when you launch your program or make an update to your campaign, for example, let's say if you have a program already in place and you make the offer stackable, make sure to promote it through those channels, your Instagram channel, Twitter, other social channels, etc., to help activate that word of mouth. We wanted to get to the bottom of just how shareable these types of offers are. And in that same study that I mentioned earlier with 1,000 consumers, we asked multiple age groups how likely they would be to share an offer. And the data was pretty consistent. For Gen Zers, we found that 83% said they would share a compelling exclusive offer with friends and family, and 31% would do so via a social network, indicating that the majority of sharing is likely still done face-to-face. So that's hard to track, but certainly something to be aware of as you plan your campaign. So now let's take a look at when to promote, right? And really there is no bad time to create an offer for a student, but there are some key times of the year that are particularly prime. The first is back to school, which we are literally on the cusp of entering into right now. As I mentioned earlier, the typical college student spends close to $1,300 a year getting ready for school. But spending doesn't just stop there. Students report that they spend 75% of their disposable income every month. So forging a brand relationship during the back to school time can be the beginning of a new relationship with your company. And of course, there's also the spring semester as well, which of course includes spring break as well as getting ready for the spring term. So those are two key times to keep in mind as you're building your campaigns, but those aren't the only times to market to them. There are other shopping events where you can create a student program like Black Friday or post-holiday sales, which can work well too. And these promotions can be run once or they can be ongoing. It really depends on what your goal is. So, for example, a one-time promotion can be a great way to try out an exclusive offer to see what kind of response you get with your customer base. In fact, there was some news today that Target just announced their teacher program, which they started for the first time last year. So they had great response last year, and now they're running it again this year to help teachers get back to school. That's a great example of how you can test these types of programs and then start to build some consistency in your seasonal calendar by offering it again and again. One-time promotions are great opportunities to drive action because it's available just once, or maybe you have it 2 times a year, like in the case of back to school. Maybe you've got the back to school program and the spring, and then a spring promotion. Brands can see a big spike in traffic and have the opportunity to re-engage them. Then there are also evergreen promotions, which run throughout the year. And this is typically done by brands that want to make an ongoing commitment to a segment, like we saw earlier with the Tableau example. In this case, I have YouTube's offer here, where they have an everyday promotion for students where they have access to YouTube Premium for half the price of a standard subscription. This way, students on a budget can try all the features of the service, and once they graduate and can afford the standard plan, they are able to do so. And brands that typically use this type of approach, if they are a subscription company, they typically see conversion rates of 90% or higher from the student plan to full price plan upon graduation. So they're extremely powerful and extremely lucrative. One other example that I wanted to share is one of a one-time promotion from a nationwide specialty fashion retailer that ran a promotion at after last year's holiday season, right after the new year. And the retailer typically doesn't run promotions to college students explicitly. So when they did it, it was certainly noticed. They ran a 10% off stack-up promotion for 5 days, and they reported a 60% increase in new-to-file customers, which were 20,000 new customers, including 40,000 opt-ins to their email list, and over $1 million in revenue in just 5 days, which generated this 18-to-1 return on investment. So that gives you a sense for the scale and power that these promotions can have, particularly if it's a new type of promotion that you're adding into your marketing mix and you have very strong alignment with the target segment. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the last best practice, on where to promote your offer. And the example I want to use here is with Headspace. Headspace has a student offer that they have in market, and they did a number of things really well. What we see is that the most successful promotions are those that are multi-pronged across multiple channels, and most importantly, use the campaign to capture valuable customer data. The beauty of a gated offer is that you want the offer to go viral. So as you have because you have verification, you want it to be distributed to as far and wide as possible, and then let, in this case, students raise their hand, self-select, and verify their eligibility. Because we've got verification, you're going to prevent any revenue leakage that might exist if you weren't checking for eligibility. So once they sign up, you also now have the ability to collect that customer attribute. And in this case, that customer attribute is able to be collected at the Headspace database through the landing page form that allows them to market to them in the future. And they market it to them through a number of different channels. You can see the social posts that they have through the email channel, and also through the partner channel and NPR as well, and on-campus events. That's right, to really get the word out and notify students about this offer. And Dan Kessler with Headspace, he recently reported that they saw a 3x increase in the subscription in their new growth segments because of this approach. And here you can see, similar to the YouTube example, how Headspace, as a subscription service, discounted the student plan, in this case, very significantly, because they know that once somebody graduates, there's a high likelihood that they are going to continue with that service once they've made that service a habit and part of their everyday lives. In addition to promoting on your external channels, there's also a lot of opportunity to embed the offer throughout your website. So one natural place to add your offer, in addition to your landing page or other promotional spots on your site, is in the footer of your site. This is going to give you an evergreen placement on your site that visitors will find, if they're scrolling your homepage or any of the other pages. It also increases your SEO juice, as there are multiple links now pointing to your promotion page asset. And another place that you should consider is through the verification form. In the verification form, you can add a simple opt-in checkbox for the customer to be entered directly into your marketing database. A third is in relevant product pages, like Nike has done, in this case with students. This is a good way to let an eligible customer know that you have a program just for them while they're in the buying decision. And remember, these types of offers are usually shared with your target segment, which ultimately increases traffic. And then the final place is, as we talked about earlier, through your social posts, which we talked about, but I just wanted to reemphasize because of how powerful these things are. So those are our 5 tips. And I just wanted to leave you with a few final thoughts that will help you build your next campaign with the Gen Z audience. The first is, remember to tap into the power of exclusivity. Exclusivity makes people feel special, and it drives urgency. The second is message more than the discount. A person's identity is a powerful form of personalization that is often overlooked. We spend a lot of time on behavioral targeting as marketers, which has a lot of value, but recognizing that someone is a student has a lot of power as well, which leads us to the next recommendation around don't forget social. Because we're tapping into somebody's identity, tapping into that identity can really help with driving virality as they're sharing it to other students that they're connected to in their network. And use the back to school season as a great time to create new relationships. Don't forget to collect customer data so you can remarket to them as you're building out your first campaigns. And then finally, promote broadly. Promote your offer through your primary demand channels and let people self-select and opt in. That's what verification helps you do, is it allows you to broadly publish and promote your promotion and let consumers self-select and enter in their details to prove their eligibility to receive the offer. So that is what I wanted to cover today. So in conclusion, exclusive targeted offers combine the best of performance marketing with brand marketing, leading to reduced acquisition costs and reduced churn. So thanks again for your time. We'll now turn it over to Kelly and Q&A.
Yep, thanks, Bill. I do want to be aware of the time, so I think we will handle any of the Q&A offline, just because it is already at half the hour. So we'll follow up with you personally if you had any questions. If you want to ask any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at hello@shareid.com. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this has been recorded. We'll send out the slides and a link to the recording for you to review and share with your team. Thanks so much, Bill, for joining us today, and thank you all for attending. Have a great rest of your day, and we will talk with you all soon.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, everyone.